Just because something looks nice doesn't mean it's not going to be a handful. I should know because I've got this. It's Himalayan balsam and it's probably the biggest problem we have here. And it's going to take years to fix. Its natural habitat is the Himalayan mountains, but it was brought to the UK about 100 years ago. Because the seeds were cheap and easy to grow, it was really popular. But within 10 years, it had left people's gardens and was taking over riverbanks everywhere. So here's what it does. Early spring, there's no sign of it, and then these little shoots pop up everywhere. Before long, there's millions of them, and by late June, they're starting to flower. Some of these are over 6 foot and still growing, and in a few weeks' time, their seeds are going to be ready to pop. And when I say pop, I mean explode. These guys scatter their seeds 20 foot wide, and then they die. By the end of autumn, they've completely gone, until the seeds next year start sprouting up again. So what's the problem? Well, these produce a huge amount of nectar, which attracts the pollinators like the bees. In fact, it attracts them so well that other native plants miss out. Also, because they grow so big and fast, they block out everything else. They completely dominate. And that creates the biggest issue, especially near water. When these guys die in the autumn, there's nothing left. This rots in days and their root network is tiny. When it's gone, there's nothing but mud left behind. So when the water starts flowing hard over the winter, erosion can be a real issue. They are a destructive weed, but we are going to beat them. And this video is very much part one of this battle, which we're going to look back on in future years to see how we've got on.
How? Well, we're not going to use chemicals. We don't like using chemicals anyway, and to do so on such a massive scale here would be just impractical. And down by the water is a real no-no. Which leaves two options: cut them down or pull them up. No seeds means nothing to come back next year. In theory, the seeds can remain viable in the ground for a few years, so you actually need to repeat the process for a good few summers, but long term it will work. We know because it's actually already happened here. Last year we had a huge problem in our meadow, but we completely obliterated them and did the same on the very small number of shoots that came up this spring, and there's nothing there at all now. Getting into trickier ground is trickier. There are simply some sections of our property that we physically can't get into at all, let alone get in there and start chopping down plants. So those places are just gonna have to wait. But areas like this, where we can get to, it is game on, and we're using trimmers and brush cutters and hedge cutters, basically anything that can just chop it down to the ground. And it does need to be cut to the ground. This stuff needs to be cut below this point here. If you cut it higher than that, up here, and leave it in the ground, it will frustratingly grow back with twice as many heads and do so almost overnight. We had sections in the meadow where we thought we'd done that. We came back a couple of weeks later and it was worse than it had ever been. The other thing we're doing a bit of, and if you ever research this stuff yourself, it's what you're told is the best technique. We're pulling it up. That tiny root network means it comes out the ground really easily. The trouble is, it's just not very practical when you've got so much of it. An obvious question to ask is, of course, do the animals eat them? And our hope was, when we got them, that they would. But they're not great at it. I'll demonstrate. In case you're not an expert on goats, that's what a goat does when he's not interested in eating it. We had hoped that the goats or the sheep or the pigs, or even the chickens or the dogs would have a nibble on them. The trouble is there's just too much other yummy stuff. The pigs like digging for acorns, the sheep would rather eat the grass, and the goats prefer the brambles, which is a thing we want them to eat. And actually, to be fair, the brambles are a horrible thing for us to have to work on because they're scratchy and nasty. We'd rather they dealt with those than the Himalayan balsam if they're only going to do one. The only animal that we've been told is pretty much foolproof for eating this stuff is a cow. And no matter how much Jen wants a cow, I'm not getting a cow.
So as we said, this is very much part one. The hope is each year we can show you an update and we can see a big improvement. It can be horrible coming out here and seeing how much has sprung up overnight. But when we refer back to our footage from last year, we can see that we have made a difference already. Got any solutions, got any questions, stick them in the comments, and if you've got a cow for sale, email me directly.